Great to have with us as our halftime guest, Leland Reddy, the offensive coordinator for Georgia Military College. Coach, how you doing?
Great, man. Great to be with you today. Appreciate the opportunity.
Hey, it's our pleasure, obviously. We're recording this in advance. We are not talking at halftime of the Tyler Georgia Military College football game. You've got a little on your plate at this particular moment in time. So
No doubt.
we're doing this a little bit in advance. Before we talk about last week, Iowa Western, this week, Tyler, I know we did this last year when we talked, but we got a lot of new viewers. So I need to have a refresher course on the background of Leland Reddy in your second year there in Georgia Military. How'd you get there?
Yeah, so this I'm going into year 17 this year coaching. I'm from state of Georgia. Grew up in Waynesboro, Georgia. Started coaching in 2007 at a small private school, Piedmont Academy, and coached Georgia high school and private school and public school for 12 years. Then got an opportunity to work with Michigan State, and then got on as a offensive analyst at Georgia Southern in 2020. Was there for 2020, 2021, and then went back to high school for a year as the offense coordinator at Coffee High School. And then through great relationships with Coach Manchester and some of the guys here, got the opportunity to come here. So that's how I got here. It's been a long, winding road.
Second year in Georgia Military. Is it noticeably more comfortable in your second year as compared to the first?
Absolutely. Look, it's last year, even at this point last year, I was still learning, how we travel, how we operate game day, all those kind of things that, Coach Manchester's been here for a little bit, so he was very comfortable, but I was still learning how do we do a road game, how do we do, all those kind of things. And so always, and it's been my experience, limited experience, but it's been my experience that the second year is you really are able to be who you are. You've been able to establish your program and your culture and all the things that we want to do offensively. And now we're just able to go out and execute. So comfortable, never comfortable, but much more acquainted with how we do things. So.
I can't say that I've ever thought about it until just then. It popped into my head that all of us are affected by the external. I mean, we may not realize it, but even our decision making is affected by, in this particular case, a comfort level. Can you notice a little bit different calling of a game now that you're a little bit more comfortable in the other aspects of the game?
For sure. That part, it definitely, all the things that we do during the week, and I know everybody sees all that we do on Saturday, but there's so much that goes into every single week, and the ebbs and flows, and the, guys are available to practice, some guys are not available to practice one day, all those kind of things, just being able to know where I'm showing up to, what we're doing, all those kind of things. It's just all those things go into the level of things that you don't have to think about that I was all still thinking about at this point last year. So yeah, it definitely plays a factor. And, there's those things, but then there's also the comfortability with our players because we have a lot of returners at key positions, quarterback, center, slot receiver, that are really important. Running back. I mean, just guys that already know how I operate. And I know that when we get into a situation where I need to adjust or anything like that, I know that those guys are already comfortable to be able to do something that's maybe slightly off the plan, but I know that we need to be able to do. And so last year, I just couldn't feel comfortable doing those things. I knew that, hey, this was new for everybody. And now I feel a little bit more latitude to be able to do some of those things just because those guys are also in their second year, which them being comfortable is way more important than me being comfortable.
Does that mean if you were to analyze your first two games of this year as compared to the first two games of last year, do you feel like you are calling a better game 2 games in this year?
Listen here, I'll say this about me. I always am very hard on myself about how things go. good or bad to the outside world, I am my harshest critic by far. But I feel like it's less about me and more about our staff is doing a phenomenal job. Last year, I mean, I had 3 guys that had very, very little experience coaching football, much less with me. And between them and our players, I'm comfortable knowing that they're going to be able to execute and that we're better prepared. And that's the biggest thing is we've got a whole group of guys, and I'm talking about our coaching staff, that has done a phenomenal job of growing and learning and forming to the things that I want to be able to, my vision for what we can be offensively. And so just to know that everybody else is more comfortable, that's my job as the coordinator, in my opinion, to make sure that those guys can operate at the highest, most efficient level. And then that way I can operate on Saturday knowing that everybody else is comfortable. So
you go to the Georgia Military College website, you look by Leland Reddy's name, and there is offensive coordinator, quarterbacks coach, assistant head coach. Am I wrong? But isn't that more duties than a year ago?
Listen, and I'm extremely grateful. Coach Manchester gave me the assistant head coach title this offseason. Not something that I was looking for, but I'm very grateful for the opportunity to grow. There's a lot of guys in this business that really aspire to be head coaches, and that has never been my dream. My dream has been to be an offensive coordinator and be great at that. But I'll say this, moving into some of the administrative roles and really having more influence on some of the day-to-day operation decisions and those kind of things has been a different experience for me and something that I've really enjoyed. So it's been good. And again, I appreciate Coach Manchester for giving me the opportunity. So
you got to be very pleased with the offense, 74 points in one, 41 points in the other. I know there was the disappointment in the loss to the number 1 team in the country, Iowa Western. But overall, you've got to be happy with the performance of your offense in 2 weeks.
Like I said, I am always my harshest critic, and I look back on a lot of opportunities that we've missed and things that we can do better. Obviously at this point, and go back to the conversation we just had a second ago, is our guys are just more comfortable doing the things that I believe in, especially at this point in the season. I didn't feel like where we're at right now, I didn't feel like we got to this point until week 8 or 9 last year. And again, that's just familiarity with who I am and our coaches and all those kind of things. And so I feel like that we're definitely further ahead than where we started last year, but I also see all the things that we could be doing better. And, that's just how I have to think about it, So
I assume, and I don't know if second guess is the appropriate word. It might be just evaluating, what the decisions you make during the course of a game. But let's call it second guessing. If there was the single play that you second guessed the most against Iowa Western, what was it?
Yeah, so there's no question that there's one single play, and it's not the one that everybody probably would think. But we had a 4th and goal from the 1 going into the 4th quarter. We had a 9-play drive that ended with us not getting in, that would have put us up 28-21. And that call, I go back and I look at it, and, sometimes you have a bad feeling about a call before you make it. Like going back and look at it schematically, it wasn't a bad call. It wasn't anything that I'm like, man, I really, this was a bad decision schematically. It was just something that, like, in my gut, I was like, I probably need to change this call. And I didn't, and then we didn't get in. And so it's kind of like, as we look, that to me, much more than the 2-point conversion call. I would call that 2-point conversion call 10 more times. The only thing is, sometimes, you call things and they don't work. So it's like, man, I'd love to see what would have happened if we'd have done something else. But like, I don't second guess the call. The 4th and 1 on the goal line, I wish I had done something different, but I wish that I had done something different before we ran the call. You always wish that you had done something different if it doesn't work. But, that's one of the things that I got a ton of faith in our players, and we did a phenomenal job of executing in some really, really difficult situations. Our coaches did a great job of making adjustments during the game, and our kids played their tails off. But, to answer your question, if there was one, it'd be that 4th and 1. I wish that I had run a slightly different version of the same thing that we did. But
all right, I want the biggest pleasant offensive surprise of the season thus far. I mean, we expected Cooper to play well. I mean, yeah, he played well a year ago. We expected Jones to pick up yardage. He picked up yardage a year ago. The surprise for you, the most pleasant one offensively?
It's hard to say. There's a lot of guys, and it absolutely with our team starts up front. Whether it be Jonathan Ashley, who played for us last year, Gabe Pierce, who's a true freshman coming in and playing, starting at guard and ended up ending the game at tackle for us. Jalen Walton at center, Charlie Allen at guard, Isaiah Turner at guard, Max Thurston, playing the first half and then, not being able to finish the game. But all of those guys, it's a drastically different cast of characters up there on the front. There's a lot of different guys that are playing a lot of different positions, and we've had to move people around into combinations but the offensive line, and that's a ton of credit to Coach Crawford, has been the biggest bright spot for us from last year. And I think that a lot of that starts with, we did a great job in recruiting with those guys. We recruited, we recruited well. We recruited high quality people and guys that just love playing football. And that it's not a singular person, but that group and how they've meshed and really gelled so quickly has been the biggest reason for our success. So
last week Iowa Western, this week Tyler. What is the game plan similar where the two are concerned, or is it a totally different offensive scheme?
I'll say this, the last 2 weeks playing Gyro Prep and playing Iowa Western, neither one of them had played a game already this year. So there's a lot of guesswork that goes into, especially in junior college football, because everybody has a brand new team every year. And so it's hard to know personnel. You're guessing on some scheme things. And so you have to have this wide net that you're prepared for going into the game, because you're not sure exactly what they're going to be doing. In this case, Tyler is a very good football team. They are very good. And last year they came down here and showed us that. But they have a very good team again this year. The positive for us is that we have a game on them. We're able to see their actual personnel they're going to play. We saw what they did schematically against Dodge City. So that part is better. So it's really not a different game plan as much as it is I can kind of pare down what we've had. Like I said, we've had to do prepare for a lot of things the last couple of weeks just because we didn't know what we were going to get. And now having a better idea of what we think we're going to get, the game plan smaller, which is a huge positive because our kids can play faster, think less, and just go out and play football.
One last question in the final 30 seconds to a minute or so, and that is a much smaller roster traveling versus at home. What role do you play in reducing that roster to a travel team?
That is extremely difficult because we start making those decisions, on Monday, Tuesday, as practice goes, that trims down, and it is extremely difficult because we know at home we got some leeway. We can bring whoever we want to have there and be ready to go. And when we got to cut that down. That it's really difficult, and it comes back to what guys are practicing the best, what guys are producing right now. And that's a hard conversation for some of those guys that have been dressing out, that are not going to be able to go with us. We wish we could take everybody with us, but that's just not the case. But it's very difficult, and it comes all the way down to Thursday after practice to making some of those decisions. So.
Well, Coach, my math skills are really limited, but I think it's 115 points in 2 games, a great offensive showing. Thanks so much for being our guest, and good luck against the Apaches.
Thank y'all so much. We appreciate it, and go Dogs.